The Archivist's Code Volume 1. Chapter 1, The Basement Below. The manuscript arrived wrapped in oilcloth, sealed in a box that smelled like mold and forgotten fire. Evelyn Cross turned it over in her gloved hands, careful not to disturb the charred edges that crumbled like ash beneath her touch. It had no title. No author. Just a date, stamped faintly on the corner of the front page. July 3, 1982. She looked around the silent reading room of the Historical Records Authority. Empty, as usual. The last intern had left an hour ago, and the lights buzzed above her like a sleeping city. Evelyn exhaled. Why send this to me? She thought. She wasn't a codebreaker. She was a preservationist, an archivist, someone who dusted off the past and stitched it back together without asking questions. But this manuscript was different. She opened the first page. A sentence stood alone, center-aligned, as though it had been typed in defiance. If you're reading this, you've already heard the whispers. She stared at it, her thumb tracing the brittle paper. Something about the sentence scratched at a memory, too faint to reach, like a name on the tip of her mind. She flipped the page. There were notes scribbled in the margins, numbers, symbols, phrases crossed out and rewritten. A language layered beneath the language. Evelyn felt a slow chill trace her spine. From the hall behind her came a soft thud. She paused. Tilted her head. Nothing. Probably the old ducts again, she thought. The archive's climate control system was older than her entire career. But as she reached for the next page, she heard it again. This time, a footstep. Slow. Deliberate. She froze. Hello? She called out, her voice too loud in the empty air. No answer. She stood, walked to the reading room door, and peered out into the hallway. Darkness. Stillness. No one. Back at the table, the manuscript remained open like a wound. Evelyn returned, but her hands trembled as she reached for it again. Beneath her fingertips, the pages no longer felt like paper. They felt like keys. Like a lock being picked inside her own head. She turned another page. This time, a list of names. Most were faded. A few were underlined. One had a small red X beside it. Senator Hallstrom. She knew that name. Everyone did. The man had died in a hotel explosion in 1982. Official cause, gas leak. She frowned, heart pounding now. This wasn't a diary. This was a confession. Or a warning. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then silence. No humming. No buzz. Just Evelyn, the manuscript, and the faint sound of static echoing from the old intercom behind her. Then a voice. Not hers. Not recent. Not even alive. They buried it. But it breathes. You're the key, Evelyn. Her blood froze. The intercom clicked off. The manuscript lay open before her. A third page now visible. Written in the same odd, slanted handwriting. Welcome back. Chapter 2, The Whistleblower's Manuscript. Evelyn didn't sleep that night. She left the manuscript locked in her fireproof drawer, but its words burned behind her eyes. Every time she closed them, she saw the name Senator Hallstrom in red. Heard the voice that shouldn't have come through a dead intercom. Felt the chill of something watching her between the bookshelves. By morning, she had convinced herself it was exhaustion. Maybe a fever dream. Maybe the manuscript was just another forgotten conspiracy theory bound in typewritten madness. But even madness has patterns. She returned early, before the staff arrived. The air in the building was cold, almost metallic. The kind of cold that felt like breath on the back of your neck. She unlocked her drawer. The manuscript was still there. But something was different. She knew it before she opened the pages. Felt it, like the subtle shift of gravity in a dream. There, wedged between the first and second chapters, was something she hadn't seen before. A folded page. Yellowed. Torn from a different type of paper altogether. Handwritten, not typed. The ink was shaky but deliberate. To whoever reads this. I didn't burn the rest. They did. The code is hidden where no one looks anymore. Begin at Hallstrom. Count the sevens. Follow the silence. Evelyn's throat went dry. She searched the manuscript again, every inch. Under the binding. Between the margins. There were notes, yes. Numbers. But now she understood. It wasn't commentary. It was a cipher. A thread through the labyrinth. She grabbed a notepad and began copying every number she could find. The sequence made no mathematical sense at first. 3, 21, 7, 14, 7, 28. Count the sevens. Her hand paused. 7 lines beneath Hallstrom's name was another. Smudged, nearly erased. G. Cross. She stared at it for what felt like forever. Her father's name. Graham Cross. He died in a car accident when she was 9. At least, that's what her mother had always told her. He'd been a historian, like her. A quiet man who kept everything filed and catalogued, even bedtime stories. But he had never mentioned Senator Hallstrom. Or the veil. Or anything close to what this manuscript hinted at. Had he known something? Or worse, had he written it? She flipped back to the first page. Looked closer. The typewriter imprint. The spacing. The ink pressure. It was the same model her father used. She remembered it distinctly. A vintage Olympia SM9. He had let her press the keys when she was small. Told her the machine had a memory. Of its own. Her hand trembled. Evelyn reached for her phone. She didn't know who she meant to call. The police? A journalist? Her own mother? But before she could decide, the phone buzzed in her palm. Unknown number. She hesitated. Then answered. Silence. And then, a low voice. Croaking. Filtered through distortion, like it was underwater, or recorded decades ago. They know you're reading it. Click. The call ended. Her hand clenched the phone like a weapon. She turned toward the archive room windows, drawn instinctively to the shadows beyond. But there was no one there. Only rows of sealed shelves. And somewhere, far away in the building, the slow creak of a door that was never meant to open. Chapter 3, The Cipher of Silence. The door that creaked hadn't moved. At least, that's what Evelyn told herself as she stood frozen at the threshold of the archival corridor. Her pulse thundered in her ears, out of place in the dead hush of the building. She stepped forward. The air felt heavier now. As if the silence had substance, a pressure that grew with each footfall. The archive's main corridor stretched ahead like the throat of a forgotten cathedral, rows of shelves on either side, filled with files no one had touched in decades. Dust floated in the thin light from a flickering fluorescent overhead. Halfway down the aisle, Evelyn stopped at a small glass-paneled door. The restricted wing. Its latch was hanging open. She reached for it. The brass handle was warm. Inside, the room was cold and sterile, lined with sealed boxes marked in black ink and government stamps. These were the unprocessed acquisitions, collections in limbo, donations and seizures from estates, accidents, quiet legal closures. She scanned the room. Nothing seemed disturbed. Until her eyes caught a box near the end of the far shelf. Box #41B. It was open. Evelyn stepped closer. Nestled inside was an old microcassette recorder, the kind used before digital archives existed. Alongside it, A folder wrapped in string and a photograph. The photo was curled at the edges, faded to brown. A man in a trench coat, looking directly at the camera. Her father. But he looked older than any memory she had of him. And something about his expression, his eyes, was off. Not sad. Not smiling. Just prepared. She slipped the recorder into her coat pocket and took the photo. Her hands moved automatically, the part of her trained for methodical preservation taking over. But her heart thudded louder when she opened the folder. Inside, pages of typed reports. Top page, Confidential Agency Report. Subheader, Candidate C, The Vale Operative Profile. Subject, Graham Cross. Alias, The Archivist. She backed away. The Archivist? The words crawled through her brain like static. Her father wasn't a spy. He was a historian. A quiet man with a fondness for jazz and puzzles, who had once told her that truth is a fragile thing, handle it with white gloves. Unless that was a warning. She stumbled out of the room and back toward her work desk, knees shaky. The walls seemed to breathe behind her. She slammed the office door shut. Locked it. Then set the microcassette player down and pressed play. A soft click. Then static. Then a voice. If this recording has survived, then my death was not an accident. I wasn't the first to disappear. I won't be the last. This is for Evelyn, my daughter. You don't know what they've buried inside you. Her throat tightened. The air around her felt thin. They call it the veil. We were archivists of secrets, keepers of decisions made in the dark so the world could keep pretending the light was winning. I tried to leave. But you don't walk away from a shadow. Not without becoming part of it. A beat of silence. Then. Evelyn, they'll come for the manuscript. But the real key is you. I hid something in the place they never catalogued, under silence itself. You'll understand. Just follow the sound that isn't there. The tape clicked off. Evelyn sat motionless. Her ears rang, not from noise, but from the absence of it. That strange instruction echoed inside her. Follow the sound that isn't there. She looked down at the manuscript again. The type. The spacing. The symbols. Then she realized there were gaps in the sentences. Too small to notice unless you read it aloud. Like breaths missing. It wasn't just a manuscript. It was notation. Silent music. She pulled the folder toward her, grabbed a pencil, and began decoding the rhythm of absences, measuring pauses, the cadence of space, counting patterns in blank lines. A phrase slowly emerged from the silence. A location. Vault L9, Sublevel 2, Whisper Chamber. She'd never heard of it. But now she knew one thing with certainty. This manuscript wasn't just her inheritance. It was a map. And someone didn't want her to follow it. Chapter 4, Echoes from 1982. The Whisper Chamber wasn't listed on any official map. Evelyn had spent hours poring over blueprints in the authorities' internal archive, but Sublevel 2 simply ended at Vault L8. No mention of L9. No references. It was as though the vault didn't exist, or was never meant to. She descended the emergency stairwell. The elevator required keycard access she didn't have. The air grew damper with each floor, until the walls seemed to weep. She counted doorways as she moved past them, L5, L6, L7. Then she saw it. A bare wall where Vault L9 should be. But something about the cement was off. Newer. Smoother. She ran her fingers along it until she found a hairline seam. A door. Hidden, but real. A keypad blinked red beside it. No numbers. Just a microphone. She remembered her father's words. Follow the sound that isn't there. Evelyn leaned in and whispered, silence. A soft click. The door slid open. Inside, it was colder than anywhere in the building. The air smelled of ozone and dust. Shelves lined the circular chamber, filled not with paper, but with reel-to-reel audio recordings. Thousands of them. Each labeled with a date and a name. A single chair sat in the center, facing an old reel projector. A file rested on the seat. Her name was typed across the top, Cross, Evelyn, initiation sequence. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a photo of her, age 12, standing beside her father. A memo. Subject's memory successfully suppressed. Full restoration begins upon manuscript decoding. The world tilted. She stumbled back, knocking over a box. One of the reels spilled out. The label read, Hallstrom, S. Final confession. She loaded it onto the projector and pressed play. Crackling. Then a voice, older, raspier. They told us we were saving the world. That leaking the truth would unravel everything. But it's not the world they wanted to save, it was the illusion. The veil. We were never the guardians. We were the liars. And now, someone has to unmask it. A pause. If Evelyn Cross finds this, she is the key. But they'll bury her like they buried me. The tape ended. She stared into the empty reel. Then turned, and realized she wasn't alone. A man in a gray suit stood in the doorway. You weren't meant to find this, he said. Come with me, Miss Cross. Now. Chapter 5, The Gray Man. He didn't give her a chance to speak. One hand gripped her arm firmly, not violently, but like someone used to control. Where are we going? Evelyn asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Security briefing. That wasn't security footage. He didn't reply. They walked in silence through sub-level 2, back up the emergency stairs, down a narrow maintenance corridor that Evelyn had never seen before. Every step echoed off steel and stone. He finally stopped at a nondescript door labeled Authorized Personnel Only. He unlocked it with a fingerprint scan. Inside, the room was small. Plain. One table. 2 chairs. A mirrored window. He motioned for her to sit. My name is Agent Keller. He said. Department of Special Acquisitions. You've accessed restricted materials. You were not authorized. I didn't break in. Evelyn said. The door responded to your voice. Keller said. Yes. That's because your access was encoded decades ago. By Graham Cross. Her breath caught. He knew? He designed it. Evelyn leaned forward. Then why was I told he died in an accident? Keller looked directly at her. Because the truth would have cost more than his life. He reached into a folder and placed a single photograph on the table. Her father, older, gray-bearded, standing beside a chalkboard covered in cipher notations. The photo was dated 1995. 7 years after his supposed death. Evelyn stared at it. He's alive? No. Keller said quietly. But he didn't die how you were told. He died protecting the location of a second manuscript. One that completes the code. She looked up. Where is it? Keller hesitated. In Cairo. Chapter 6, Cairo Protocol. The authority had a satellite branch in Egypt, hidden under the guise of a joint antiquities initiative. Evelyn had read about it in passing, thinking it handled old papyrus restoration and Coptic manuscripts. Now, she was being flown there on a classified ticket. No passport check. No baggage. Just the gray-suited man, the sealed briefcase, and an uneasy silence between them. They landed in Cairo at dawn. The air smelled of dust, diesel, and something older. The safe house wasn't far. Beneath a restored Ottoman villa, deep underground, sat a chamber lined in sandstone and copper. In the center, on a marble pedestal, was a second manuscript. Thicker. Bound in leather. The title read, "The Nine Veils, Codex 2. She opened the first page. It wasn't typewritten. It was handwritten. And it wasn't in English. Chapter 7, The Cipher Wheel. The script was a mix of Arabic, Latin, and an ancient dialect Evelyn couldn't place. But scattered between the lines were familiar symbols, the same ones from her father's pages. Keller handed her a small box. Inside, a brass cipher wheel. Old. Etched with the insignia of the veil, a circle split in 3, each third marked with a different numeral, 3, 6, 9. The wheel unlocks layered text. Keller said. Your father designed it. He believed truth had to be uncovered through sequence, not chance. Evelyn turned the wheel. Symbols clicked into place. Words began to emerge from the invisible ink under her blacklight lens. The lie was global. The veil was never one order. It was 3. Each hiding from the other. And only the child of the archivist could reunite the whole. She blinked. 3 veils. She whispered. Then a loud knock shook the chamber. Keller stood, gun already drawn. We've been found. Chapter 8, The Second Pursuit. Gunfire erupted upstairs. Evelyn clutched the codex and the cipher wheel, ducking as Keller fired through the corridor. A dark-clad figure fell at the threshold. We need to move. They exited through a tunnel hidden behind a sandstone plaque. The passage twisted for hundreds of meters before emerging into a crowded Cairo marketplace. In the chaos, Keller turned to her. If I'm taken, you run. Memorize this, 3 hide behind the eye. The truth bleeds from the oldest wound. What does it mean? Evelyn asked. He didn't answer. Because someone shot him in the chest. Keller collapsed. Evelyn fled. Chapter 9, Sanctuary of Dust. Evelyn found herself at the old Coptic church of St. Mercurius, where her father once lectured during a historical summit. A priest named Father Basim recognized her. You have your father's eyes, he said. He left something here. Told me to wait until the child of silence returned. He led her below the altar to a room walled in ancient prayer scrolls. Inside a niche, wrapped in linen, was a small metallic pendant, etched with the same 369 veil symbol. She held it close. Basim said quietly, it's a key. To Rome. Chapter 10, A Veil in Rome. Disguised, Evelyn boarded a freight vessel bound for Italy. The pendant opened a box hidden beneath a statue in the ruins of the Roman Forum. Inside, letters. Maps. And one final note in her father's hand. When all 3 veils align, the silence ends. But beware, not every truth frees you. Some imprison. A sudden shadow crossed the forum. She turned. A woman stood there. Evelyn recognized her face from a photograph Keller had shown her. Agent Mira Tal, the rogue from Veil 3. Hello, Evelyn. She said. Ready to see the real world fall apart? To be continued.